These teenagers were killed in their sleep by the last person anyone would expect. It was the 1st of November 2018 in Oklahoma. Cason Tolliver was 18 years old. His sister was 16-year-old Chloe. They also had a younger 14-year-old sister who remains anonymous. Cason was a talented football player and was a senior in high school. Chloe was described as a sweet, kind girl who loved cheerleading. Their mum was 43-year-old Amy Hall. In the early hours of the morning on the day in question, she crept into her son's bedroom and shot him in the head. He was instantly killed. Now, his friend was sleeping over in the same room and started to call police. Amy then walked into Chloe's room that she shared with her younger sister and shot them both. The younger sister was grazed in the neck but managed to flee to the bathroom. It was there that she convinced her mum to hand over the gun. Police sped round to the scene at around 6:30 a.m. that morning and rushed Chloe to hospital. Tragically, she was declared brain dead and passed away 4 days after. Meanwhile, Amy had fled the house and was involved in a high-speed car chase with police. She was eventually apprehended and taken into custody. Amy later claimed that she killed her children in order to save them from her estranged husband. There was allegedly an ongoing custody battle. She has pleaded guilty and been sentenced to life in prison.
These are 5 facts about the Tim McLean case you may not know. If you're unaware of the case I'm about to discuss, it's the case where Vince Lee beheads Tim McLean on a Greyhound bus. Number 1. Tim McLean's family has filed a $150,000 lawsuit against Greyhound and Vince Lee. Number 2. On February 16, 2011, 2 passengers, Deborah Tucker and Kaylee Shaw, filed a lawsuit against Lee, Greyhound, the RCMP, and the Canadian government for being exposed to their beheading. They were each seeking $3 million in damages. On July 14, 2015, the 2 women dropped their lawsuit. Number 3. The Toronto Sun reported on July 17, 2014, that one of the first officers on the scene, Corporal Ken Barker, has unalived himself. In his obituary, his family stated that he suffered from PTSD. Number 4. On February 27, 2015, CBC News reported that Lee was given unsupervised day passes to visit Winnipeg as long as he carried a working cell phone. Number 5. The Manitoba Criminal Code Review Board ordered Lee's release on February 10, 2017. Lee was granted complete freedom, meaning there was 0 restrictions on him and he could roam around as a free man. Rest in peace Tim McLean and Corporal Ken Barker.
Scariest Serial Killers Part 3, Derek Todd. Derek Todd Lee was an American serial killer active between the years of 1992 and 2003. And Derek sadly murdered 7 women in the Baton Rouge area. Derek had an obsession for stalking women and he wanted to rape and hurt them. Over the years, Derek had been arrested multiple times for breaking into the homes of women and attempted to rape them. And several women had got restraining orders against Derek, claiming that he was obsessively stalking them, but they wasn't really believed. Despite all of the known information about Derek's past and how he is towards women, police never bothered to look at him in connection to these murders, as police and detectives strongly believed that the killer was a white man. It wasn't until 2003, when Derek was arrested for the rape of a woman, that his DNA was finally taken and tested against samples from some of the Baton Rouge killers' crime scenes, and it was a match to all 7 murders. Derek was arrested for the murders of all 7 women, and he was sentenced to death at his trial.
Breaking news: country music star Morgan Wallen has been arrested. Officials say the country music star was charged with 3 felonies early this morning. The incident occurred at Eric Church's new honky tonk on Broadway in Nashville. According to the official report, authorities say they were standing in front of Chief's Bar on Broadway Sunday night when a chair fell from above. Luckily, it did not hit anyone, but it hit the ground just feet away from where they were standing. Following the incident, staff members at Chief's told authorities that Wallen was responsible for throwing the chair. They said the chair came from the 6th floor of the building. They were then able to view video which showed Wallen, quote, lunging and throwing an object over the roof. According to the report, it also stated that witnesses told officers he laughed afterwards. Wallen was arrested on 3 counts of reckless endangerment for the 2 officers who were in the vicinity and the danger of the public that he caused. In addition to that, he was also charged with disorderly conduct. He had a bond that was set at $15,000. His next court date is May 3rd, and he is already expected to be in Nashville on that date. He has a tour coming to the Nissan Stadium on May 2nd and 3rd. His attorney has since released a statement. It says, quote, at 10:53 p.m. Sunday evening, Morgan Wallen was arrested in downtown Nashville for reckless endangerment and disorderly conduct. He is cooperating fully with authorities. Since the incident, Morgan was bonded out.
Usually with my videos, I try to do more good than evil. Today we choose evil. AirPods. You can use them to enhance your hearing. Have your headphones in at the grocery, on a walk, at the gym. People think you're listening to music. No, I'm listening to you. In settings, go to accessibility. Then go to AirPods, audio accessibility settings, headphone accommodations, vocal range, moderate to strong. And then put your headphones in transparency mode. Useful to enhance situational awareness. I always say if you find yourself in a street fight or a survival situation, if you're not cheating, you're not trying hard enough. My cop brain also thinks if something is meant for good, how could somebody with bad intentions use it for bad? Eavesdropping's the obvious one. What if you're a student and your really smart best friend's sitting a few feet away from you? Most teachers are wise to this and don't allow AirPods at all, because you could just put answers on the test on a loop and play them over and over again. This is just what I was thinking of when I woke up this morning. It's just how my brain works. If you got something about this video, please give me a follow. Killer Bee merch is available. Links in the bio. Be aware and be safe.
An infant who was found deceased on the 405 freeway in Los Angeles, California on Monday has been linked to a murder and another fatal crash. Around 4:30 a.m. on Monday, 2 children were spotted on the northbound side of the 405 freeway in Westchester. California Highway Patrol officials said they discovered 2 girls at the scene, a 5 or 6-month-old infant on the actual freeway and a 9-year-old girl on the right shoulder. Fortunately, the infant was dead when they arrived, but the other girl was hospitalized with minor injuries. Yesterday morning, investigators confirmed that the infant's death is connected with a murder that happened Monday morning in Woodland Hills. 34-year-old Danielle Johnson fatally stabbed her partner at the Montecito apartment complex in Woodland Hills around 3:30 a.m. on Monday. Los Angeles County Department of Medical Examiner identified the man as 29-year-old Jalen Allen Cheney. Neighbors said that a man and woman lived next door to her for about a year with their 2 children, and she had recently heard multiple nights where they were fighting in the middle of the night. She said around 3:40 a.m. on Monday, she woke up to screaming and commotion, but she was really groggy, so she went back to sleep. When she got up for work the next morning, she walked out her front door and immediately saw that their front door was wide open and there was blood coming from their apartment. So she called authorities, and when they arrived, they discovered Jalen. After the murder, Johnson fled the apartment with the infant and 9-year-old girl in a black Porsche. Detectives are currently trying to determine how the children got on the freeway, if they fell out of the car or were pushed out. But after the girls were ejected from the car, Johnson kept driving on the 405 and ended up crashing into a tree near a church around 5 a.m. on PCH in Redondo Beach. And it was a fatal crash, so Johnson died and cannot be charged in Jalen's murder. CHP is asking for the public's help to determine what happened to the children, and they emphasize the importance of dash cam footage from any vehicles that were in the area around 4 or 5 a.m. This would be along the 405 between Howard Hughes and Centinela. Anyone with any information on the case can call the CHP Southern Division Major Crimes Office or the CHP Traffic Management Center. The 9-year-old girl is now the sole survivor of her family. Authorities are still trying to determine exactly what happened. May Jalen and that sweet baby girl rest in peace.
If you thought the edible crap from the Human Centipede was gross, wait until you find out that in Human Centipede 3, one of the characters is eating dried, circumcised lady parts out of a jar. He's just straight up picking them out, eating them like candy. There are so many questionable decisions in the Human Centipede 3 involving women specifically. Like, I genuinely could not tell you the amount of times that one particular girl is assaulted in the movie. Like, I genuinely lost count. And it's played for laughs, like, almost every single time. And that's allegedly one of the reasons why the main actor, Dieter Laser, rest in peace, didn't want to be in Human Centipede 3. This is all alleged, but the story goes, Dieter Laser is a German actor who was cast for the Human Centipede, and in this movie he plays a crazy German doctor who's stitching 3 people together. And his character is inspired by a real-life Nazi doctor during World War II. But then they decide to bring him back for the 3rd movie and make him a Texas warden. He's the warden of a prison, but he's an over-the-top, insane neo-Nazi. He's assaulting people left and right, men and women, xenophobic, homophobic, transphobic, like literally anything bad that you can attribute to a person, he's the embodiment of it. And Dieter Laser didn't want to come back to do the role. He said it was way too over the top and that it was cruel. But allegedly, the way the story goes, he was threatened to be sued by the director because his contract called for him to come back for the movie.
The people who built this hotel said it was fireproof, but on December 20th, 1970, the hotel caught fire, and in the resulting blaze, 29 people would die. I'd never heard about this, so let's talk about it. So right here is, or was, the Pioneer Hotel in Tucson, Arizona. The hotel was opened in 1929 and was the center of the city's business district, and this property catered to the social elite in town. In fact, in the mid-20th century, 2 owners of a large department store in Tucson lived in the penthouses at the top of the hotel. But shortly after midnight on December 20th, 1970, a fire started on the upper floors of the hotel. And almost immediately, smoke began to fill the hallways and the fire ripped through the hotel. The Tucson Fire Department tried their best to get people out, but it was too late. After the fire, a room clerk stated that he saw a flame burst through the elevator shaft all the way to the top. And even though firemen begged and pleaded for people not to jump from the flames down to the ground, they still did. In fact, this is a quote from a witness I'm going to read you. People were jumping from the windows and splattering on the sidewalk. It was awful. Firemen were screaming to people through their horns to stay on the floors for oxygen. Witnesses would state that they saw people jumping lit up by the floodlights from the 10th floor and the roof to their deaths. But how did this fire start? Now this is where it gets interesting. So eventually 16-year-old Lewis C. Taylor was arrested and convicted of arson. This was after a fire investigator hired by the state of Arizona concluded that the fire was most likely started by a young black man. The trial was extremely mishandled, so much evidence that would not fly nowadays. But eventually Lewis was convicted by an all-white jury. In 2013, though, new evidence was presented that showed that the fire may not have been started by arson after all. And eventually Lewis was released from prison. Now, modern investigators with modern technology have analyzed all the evidence, and even to this day, they have no clue how the fire started. Lewis has always claimed that he was innocent and in fact stated that he ran room to room trying to alert people about the flames in an attempt to save lives. So, 29 people dead in one of America's most infamous hotel fires. And still, so much mystery. I'm really curious to see if one day we'll ever have some sort of an answer on this. Oh yeah, and they converted the hotel into office buildings after this all went down. It's still standing in Tucson, Arizona, and let me tell you, it's known to be one of the most haunted spots in the city. Go figure. Also, if you want to hear more true crime stories, listen to my wife and I's podcast, Murder in America, available on all streaming platforms.
Hell House LLC may be one of the most scariest movies I've ever seen. Alright, let's talk about it. The movie starts out with this reporter Diane, and she is trying to put together a documentary to find out what had happened at this Halloween haunted house that had caused so many deaths. Pretty much everybody was hush-hush about the whole situation and what really happened at this hotel. Diane was then contacted by Sarah, and she was the one remaining crew member from that haunted house, and she just wanted to tell her side of the story. She shows up with a bag full of tapes since her crew was filming that whole night and tells Diane to watch it. Here we have Paul, Mac, Alex, Tony, and Sarah, and they decide to rent out an old hotel to have a haunted Halloween house. With doing this, they realized that they could make a lot of money from the public because haunted houses are always super popular. The 5 of them start setting up their props for the haunted house, and almost immediately, creepy stuff starts to happen. Paul is walking around the hotel, and that's when he notices that one of the clowns ends up moving. The clown then moves from the basement all the way up to upstairs. Since Paul was recording, he ends up showing this to everybody, and Alex and Mac think this is some kind of prank, so they just continue on with setting up. And honestly, more stuff just starts to happen. In the tapes, it shows that all the crew members ended up getting killed by something paranormal. At this point in the movie, it cuts back to Diane and Sarah decides to leave and go back to her hotel room because it's just too much for her. Before Sarah leaves, she tells Diane that she should break into the hotel and see it for herself. Diane and her cameraman decide to go to Sarah's hotel that she was staying at, and when they go to the front desk, they state that she's staying at room 2C, but the person working the front desk said that room does not even exist. That's when Diane decides just to break into the old hotel and just walk around with her cameraman. As they're walking inside, they come across a bedroom labeled 2C, and that is when they see Sarah sitting at the end of the bed. Diane goes over to Sarah to tap on her shoulder, and that's when she sees that her face is all distorted. The door then closes, and Diane and her cameraman are surrounded by all these hooded cloak figures. So Sarah was dead this whole time, and no one had actually survived this hell house. If you end up watching this movie, let me know what you think.
This sick freak used the username KiwiPedo online and attempted to buy a child from the dark web. Oh yeah, did I mention he's a free man walking out in society right now? Let's talk about this. This is Aaron Hutton from New Zealand. In the year 2014, New Zealand police started tracking an account that went by KiwiPedo on the dark web. And the chats that this user was having with undercover police were disturbing. Aaron had responded to an ad that an undercover officer posted offering a Chinese child for sale for $10,000. Aaron reached out and it seemed like he was deadly serious. During his conversations with the undercover officer, Aaron referenced Josef Fritzl, the man who imprisoned his own daughter for 24 years in Austria, repeatedly assaulted her, and even had children with her. Aaron referred to Josef as his hero. And when the undercover officer asked Aaron if having a random Chinese child in his home would raise any suspicion, Aaron, chatting as KiwiPedo, responded, "It's called a basement." So eventually Aaron started telling the undercover officer that he would pay up to $15,000 in cash or Bitcoin for a child under 7. And soon afterwards, the authorities were able to pinpoint where his chats were coming from, his workplace, and Aaron was then arrested and his workplace and house were searched. Now, investigators actually found 417 CP or CSAM images and videos on Aaron's devices, which in my opinion is enough to be a life sentence. But after all was said and done, after this man tried to purchase a child under 7 years old on the dark web, after he was found to be in possession of hundreds of CP and CSAM images and videos, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison. And to add insult to injury, his 5-year sentence was thrown out and he was resentenced to only 3 years in prison. This happened a few years ago, so that means that he's back out in society right now. Yes, Aaron has already been released. He's already served his full sentence for all of that. And it truly just makes me sick to my stomach that people like this keep getting away with these crimes time and time again. When you're in possession of hundreds of CP or CSAM images, that should be treated as you victimizing hundreds of children. But the government doesn't see it that way for some reason. I don't understand why. And yeah, he's back out. If you want to hear more true crime stories, be sure to listen to my wife and I's podcast, Murder in America, available on all streaming platforms. This pedophile committed a crime so disturbing that a petition was created that asked the government to publicly hang him. And the petition gathered thousands of signatures. This is 33-year-old Benjamin Taylor from West Virginia. And in 2016, he would commit one of the most sickening crimes I've ever read about. Back in 2016, Benjamin was living with his girlfriend, a woman named Amanda Adkins. At the time, Amanda had recently given birth only 9 months ago to her baby daughter, Emily. Emily was a beautiful young girl. And I want to warn you all right now, the details that we're about to discuss are some of the most disturbing I've ever covered. So in October of 2016, Benjamin had only been living with his girlfriend Amanda for about a month. And on the morning of Emily's death at around 4:30 a.m., Amanda woke up and went downstairs to search for her baby. When she went downstairs, she saw Benjamin Taylor with his pants unzipped sitting in the dark. Amanda then noticed that her 9-month-old daughter's limp body was lying nearby on a pile of sheets and laundry. Amanda screamed at Benjamin and grabbed her daughter's lifeless body, but he remained silent and stared at the ground. The details of what had just happened down there are disturbing. Local authorities would call this the worst assault that they had seen in decades. You see, Benjamin and Emily were covered in the infant's blood. After the child's body was examined, the authorities were able to determine that she had been assaulted by an adult male multiple times. The infant child was also bleeding extensively and had suffered head trauma. Emily had a fractured skull and brain hemorrhaging. Authorities believe that Emily may have been shaken violently, or even thrown to the ground or slammed against a hard object. When police arrived at the scene, Benjamin Taylor was observed trying to wipe something off of his groin. That was eventually determined to be Emily's blood. He also told authorities that he remembered taking the baby to the basement, but that he blacked out after that. You see, he had been smoking and drinking the night before, and that was his excuse. Thankfully, Benjamin was convicted of all charges and sentenced to life in prison without mercy, as you can see right here. But for some people, that just wasn't enough. And like I said at the beginning of this video, a petition was created which asked the government to publicly hang Benjamin. And this petition, before it was shut down, gathered over 50,000 signatures. I mean, this truly is one of the worst things that I've ever covered here on my TikTok. And personally, I don't think that life in prison is enough for this guy. I mean, the pain that poor Emily went through before she was eventually killed is just heartbreaking on every single level. And I just hope and pray that the other prisoners that are in there with Benjamin find out, or already have found out, exactly what he did to land himself in there. If you want to hear more true crime stories, listen to the podcast Murder in America that I co-host with my wife, Courtney. It's available on all streaming platforms.